Seems like jiu-jitsu is like your favorite thing. You know, you have fucking trunks for legs and trunks for arms, bro.
Jiu-jitsu was my first passion. Back in, when was that? Like 2011, before like Detroit Jiu-Jitsu was the big place that it is now.
Yeah.
It was no bigger than, I don't know, like a 30-foot wide building. And I was like, man, I want to go try this out. I was like a junior in high school. I went and I trained there for 3 months. I was like a 16-year-old kid. I mean, granted, most of the other people I rolled with were like white and blue belts, but I was like tapping like 40-year-old men and shit, like my first couple weeks there, and I was like, damn, I'm pretty good at this. And then they wanted to try to keep me to stay, but I'm like, I'm a football player. Football season's coming up. I got to get back to it. And then when football season ended, I ended up playing basketball my senior year. And then when springtime was rolling around, it was all just college workouts and shit like that, so I never ended up going back. And then when I came home from college, I didn't want to just do jiu-jitsu, I wanted to do mixed martial arts, so I ended up coming here instead.
So when did you have your first amateur fight? Because you 7-2 as an amateur, right? 2-1 as a pro?
Well, 7-2 in sanctioned, but I had like 5 fights prior to that sanction.
Oh, okay.
So my actual amateur record was 12-2. And then yeah, I've had 3 pro fights, 2-1. My first fight was July 6th of 2013. So I had started here 4 or 5 months prior. I don't know, I had been here like 3 months and they were like, do you want to fight? And I was like, yeah, can I already? And they're like, yeah, I think so. And like back then, there was a lot of like the OG guys, because it was a very like, not a smaller gym, but we were more condensed with fighters. It was primarily fighters, and then you had like Felicia and MJ were still here, and you had like a couple drip drops of like other people. But I had to like go through like a panel. Like I remember them like pulling me in. It was a room similar to this, like off of the men's bathroom, and like coach and like a couple of the other guys pulled me back in there, and like they had to go through like a panel, and each one was like yes or no, or I think he needs to work on this first. And they pretty much everybody said yes. So, and then they got me a fight. Back then we used to do Prison City Fight League. It was in Jackson. And yeah, I had my first fight after like 4 or 5 months of training. And then I rifled off 3 in a row right after that. My first one, I threw a switch kick. It hit him in the face, and it like brought his hands down because it like kind of stunned him. And then as I dropped that foot to the ground, I just laid into it too and boom, KO'd him. That was my first fight, first round knockout.
How was that, knocking somebody out for like the first time?
Dude, it was like, it was just such a weird feeling. Like, I don't know how to explain it, because there was just so much like emotion and everything going into that fight, because like A, it was my first one. B, like I worked my ass off for like football, both in high school and in college, and the teams I played for just like were not very good. So it was my first time really being able to feel like I worked for something and like I earned something. And my dad, my poor dad, him and my uncle came, and the only thing that my dad knew about mixed martial arts was like, you know, UFC 1, UFC 2, like no weight classes, bare knuckle, bloody, bludgeon. And so he's back there shaking like a leaf, like, oh my God, what's going on? Yeah. And I remember Coach and Tim, they were sitting there talking to him. They're like, listen, Mr. Caldwell, we wouldn't put him in there if we didn't think he was going to do all right. And he was just like shaking like a leaf. And he was going through a lot of emotional trauma at the time too. Him and my mom were separating. His parents had both just died, so he had a lot of stuff on his plate, and so it was like a really big deal. And yeah,
sure, just seeing your son, I mean, be put at any risk, I'm sure.
Right? Yeah, it was. Oh man, it was so crazy. And then so I get in there, and the guy that I'm fighting, he's a skinny guy, but he was pretty long. And within like the first 30 seconds, he like popped me with a jab, and it like busted my nose. My nose immediately started bleeding, and then it kind of like woke me up in a sense, I guess. I was like, okay, well, I know what I gotta do. And then yeah, I kind of like, it's somewhere in the depths of YouTube still, but I like, my head movement and my angles and my striking were just so bad, obviously, compared to what they are now. But for somebody that had less than 4 months of training at the time, it really wasn't that awful, I guess. But But yeah, I threw a head kick and I punched, and then I rolled under it, and I remember being like, where the fuck did he go? Because like I hit, when you like land an actual knockout punch, it doesn't even feel like you hit anything. It feels like you punched through a cloud, because you literally punch through them, and he just like folded backwards, and I was like, oh shit, he's over there. And I just jumped on him. And then the ref pulled me off pretty quick, and I was like, oh my God, I like stood up, had no idea what to do. I just started like stomping around. I look out and I just see my dad throwing his hands up, yeah, running towards the cage. It was really cool, man. It was really, 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 really cool. So, but yeah, that was the first one. Second one I won by submission. It was only a month and a half after that. And then my third fight was actually like my real like telling point of like, okay, I can maybe actually go somewhere with this. It was Prison City Fight League, and they had this guy, his name was like Joseph Monica, I think. He was a younger guy, but he was a college wrestler from, it wasn't like a very big school, but it was like some school in Indiana. Maybe like a D3 college, I don't remember. But he was a good wrestler. He was 5-0 with all first round finishes.
Oh wow.
And he was supposed to fight somebody for the title, and that person got injured. So the promoter hit Coach up and was like, hey, because we fought on every single card there. And those cards were nuts. They used to have like 20, 30 fights a night. It was absolutely insane. We'd be there till like 3 o'clock in the morning. And but he had Coach up like, hey, do you have anybody that would want to fight for the 185 belt? So Coach came up to me and was like, hey, you want to give this a try? And I was like, if you think I can. And he's like, I think you can, but either way it's going to be good experience for you, because if you lose, I mean, you're losing to a pretty good guy and you've only had 2 fights. If you win, dude, that's awesome. Dude, I remember I went nuts going into that fight, man. Like, I just did nothing but, I worked from like 6 a.m. to 2:30, and then I'd get home at like 3. I'd go hit the gym, hit a quick lift, and then I'd be right up here by like 4:30, 5 o'clock every day, just training. And I knew he was a wrestler, and I didn't have any wrestling. I didn't wrestle in high school. I was a basketball player for some, God knows why. But the Gaffkeys that train here, the eldest brother, Mike Gaffkey, used to be the head wrestling coach at Churchill. And I was very close with all of them, and he's like, hey man, and this is right around the time the wrestling season's starting up. He's like, why don't you come in and start doing like wrestling practices with us? And I was like, yeah, dude, that'd be great. And at the time, it's funny, you know Bacher that trains here?
Yeah.
Bacher was a junior in high school, and he was about my size. So I knew him from way back then. I was going to Churchill's wrestling practices and just wrestling with him constantly for the weeks leading up to it. And then, yeah, it was like November, I want to say it was like November 2nd. It was pretty early in November. And so I had only been here I'd been here less than a year, and I already had a title fight. And dude, it was a war. It was a really, really hard fought battle. That guy definitely did not want to lose. I just wanted it that much more. I remember it's the most rocked that I've ever been in a fight. Not even from a punch, but I had him in an armbar in the second round, and he picked me up and pile drived me on the top of my head. And then somehow I hit some goofy sweep that like isn't even really a move. It was just like a miracle that
luck.
Yeah, literally just to get him off of me, and I ended the round on top of him. And I remember Coach and my other corner at the time, Brian Householder, who's a pro fighter from here, they came into my corner, and dude, they were like, and then he hit me with the ice pack on the back of my neck, and it slowly came together. He was one. He's like, you okay, buddy? I'm like, yeah, I'm totally fine. And then I went out there and I finished him in the third, and he came out, blasted me with a 2, and then he like shot in, and I hit like a roll where I like kicked him up and over me, and then I put him up against the fence, took him down, got to mount, and just postured up, just started bludgeoning him with elbows. It was my first time that I had like mounted somebody and like finished them with just nasty ground and pound.
Die, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, he was
take me
out. But I spent, and it's a good thing too, because I spent every last bit of energy that I had trying to put him away. And when the ref threw me off, I literally just rolled over and put my arms up and was breathing, coaching everybody, because I wasn't supposed to win that.
Yeah.
Coaching everybody, like the whole team, man. There's like 12 people that rush the cage and they're all like, yeah, and they're all like jumping around me and they're trying to pick me up. I'm like, just give me a minute. Give me a minute. I was like dying. They had to like lift me up on both hands. And I'm like trying to be happy and celebrate, but at the same
like
time.
the Spider-Man scene where they're putting
Literally, man. Oh, dude, I was so dead. They gave me. There was a picture that I had. I'm sure I could find it somewhere, but they had like this couch in the locker room in the back, and like my head was just busting from him dropping me on my skull, and I had exerted so much energy. That was the only time that I've ever like dry heaved after a fight. Dude, I could not keep anything down for like 2 hours after that fight. I was just dry heaving, laying in this couch on the locker room with my belt on, and I was just happy. I was happy, and then I'd turn over and dry heave some more, and then I'd lay back down and I'd just rub it a little bit, you know, touch that metal on my waist. But yeah, it was that was the first real sign that I was like, holy shit, maybe I can actually, you know, make something of this if I can actually apply myself to it.
What was that like being in there and like having to go to war with somebody and like actually taking damage and having to fight through that for the first time, especially as an amateur?
Yeah, the amateur days were a lot different back then. Like, Coach tried to put us in situations to make us lose, like give us the toughest fights possible, because he wanted us to lose to be able to see, okay, can this guy bounce back from it or not? That's the real test. And so he would, I mean, that was my first time really being like rocked, and it's like that fight or flight thing, you know, and that's really when you get one of two reactions when you get hurt real bad. You're either like, holy shit, I want out of this, or you're like, that fucking hurt, I want to make him hurt even more. And luckily, I just instinctively had the second reaction to it. So, but I mean, it's fun in a way, man. Like, it is, because you just feel so alive when you're in that moment, and nothing else besides your corners exists, and your opponent, and you're just so locked in and dialed in on something that it's a very unique feeling. I mean, I'm sure there's other high-level athletes that experience something similar in different sports, but in this one specifically, like, yeah, it's just, and it's very rewarding. It's very rewarding knowing that, like, you got the best of that guy on that night. If that were a fight to the death, like, I would have killed him if nobody was there to stop me. You know what I mean? So, and it makes all of the hours that you sink into this place versus playing video games, hanging out with your friends, going to family functions, and the sacrifices that you make for here worth it, you know? Because there's no high like getting your hand raised and having some championship gold put around your waist, man.
What kind of sacrifices have you had to make to be able to do this?
There's been a lot, man. Instead of going to college and trying to really focus on a lot of schooling, I was afraid it was going to take away from this. So, you know, I never dove too much into that. I did kind of putz around with it here and there. When I was younger, I was really stupid, and this was my absolute number one priority. I'm talking when I was like 19, 20, 21 years old. And I would just find some dead-end bullshit job, just enough to pay what little bills I had at the time. And the minute that job tried to change my schedule or tried to interfere in any way, shape, or form with me being able to make it to the gym, go to fight shows, and do anything like that, boom, I would just quit and go find some other dead-end job. And I bounced around at a lot of places, and I did a lot of things instead of trying to, like, find a career, settle in somewhere, and then put some tenure in. I just flip-flopped to a million different places so I could be here as much as humanly possible.
You put this as your number one priority, basically.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways you have to, you know, but...
Yeah, to be successful in anything, you have to, especially if you want to get to the level that you want to get. I mean, you have to basically sacrifice everything and make this your entire life.
You got to dedicate everything to it, man. And it's been... I mean, it's a struggle. Obviously, as I've gotten older and I have kids, like, I needed to get better jobs that pay better and kind of settle in a little bit. And I've been able to find a good balance of it. But, I mean, yeah, there's a lot, man. Like, this past year, you know, I had that fight pull out in January. Guy pulled out 2 days before.
3 in a row now.
Yes. And, you know, that guy pulled out 2 days before. The fight was like the first weekend in January. So there was Christmas. My birthday is 2 days after Christmas. It was my 30th birthday. And then you had New Year's. And always growing up, because you always have that week off of school or you have that week off of work. And it's Christmas Eve, Christmas, my birthday, New Year's Eve. It's always my favorite week of the year. I couldn't do shit because I had to cut 20 pounds to make weight. I had to still get down to 185. So I wasn't eating all the delicious New Year foods. I wasn't celebrating and going out and drinking with my friends on my 30th birthday. I just sat at my house and like had people come over and just hang out, and like I didn't even drink. I had them all drink still to celebrate. We called it a funeral for my youth. But, you know, yeah, I mean, it's the little things like that even. And to me, it would have all been worth it because I was going to go in there and murder that guy. And he, you know, got wind of that and was like, nah, maybe I don't really want to do this. And then he pulled out 2 days prior. Now, it would have been a lot nicer if you'd have pulled out 3 weeks prior and I could have enjoyed myself. But the way that I look at it, man, is like when stuff like that happens, you know, like I had this opportunity coming up on May 24th to fight for my first professional title. I don't feel like I would have that opportunity had all of these other things not have happened. And every time something bad happens, all of that good work and those good things and those sacrifices that I've made get put into this bank. And that bank slowly starts to build up. And then after so long, when that account's full, boom, insert good thing. And again, here we are. I'm getting a chance to fight for a professional title, even though I've only had 3 professional fights over the last 8 years. They're giving me a shot. Why? Because I had a lot of notoriety back in 2017, 2016. I was the #1 ranked middleweight, and nobody wants to fight me. So they kind of, for me to get a fight, it's like that's kind of the only choice. And so, you know, we pled our case to the promoter, and they're like, yeah, we'll give him a shot. So, you know, like I said, I try to be pretty optimistic about things because I spent a good portion of the last 10 years living negatively and viewing things negatively. And I really tried to break free from that. So I try to find that silver lining in everything. So every time something bad happens, or every time something doesn't go my way, I try to find the positives from that. And like I said, it's the bank. Every time I'm putting all this hard work and all this sacrifice in, it's just building me equity. And eventually that equity, boom, pays itself off. And now I have this huge opportunity. It's not given. I earned it. But I still have to go in there and then earn that belt. I still have to go in there and win, which I don't think I'm going to have very much trouble doing. But
it's always perspective at the end of the day. You can look at any situation however you want to.
Correct.
However you look at it, you're right. Let's go back to your first pro fight.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they kind of screwed you a little bit because I saw the guy's record. He was already 2-0.
Yes.
And this was your first pro fight.
Yes.
And then so you got submitted in the first round, right? So, and then that's when you went on your 7-year hiatus, right? Because you also had a child.
There was a lot of things going into that, and I don't want to speak too negatively on the other person. But in my personal life, I had a lot of struggles going on at that time. Things didn't play out in my at-home life the way that I had perceived that they would. And there was a lot of outside pressures put on me to, hey, you need a better job. Hey, there's a baby on the way. Hey, we got all these extra bills now. And so I really wanted to turn pro. We were having trouble finding me any more amateur fights at that time anyways. I already had 3 middleweight championships as an amateur. I was 12-2, and I'm like, I have nothing left to prove as an amateur. And everybody was already starting to turn pro because sanctioning had just kicked in 2016. So everybody that had 10, 15 AMI fights were like, why am I going to pay to keep fighting as an amateur when I could pay to fight as a pro and get paid? So everybody was starting to turn pro, and I'm like, there's no reason that I'm not. So granted, there weren't very many pro shows here in Michigan yet, And prior to sanctioning, when you wanted to get a pro fight, you pretty much had to go out of state. And whenever you go out of state, you get a very unfavorable matchup.
Is that why you're number 3 in Indiana for some reason?
Yeah, it's very weird. Very weird. But yeah, so I had a lot of distractions going into that fight. I was working 60 some hours a week at a day job. I was only making it up here like an hour at a time. I really wasn't grappling the way that I should have been. I hadn't worn a gi for jiu-jitsu in probably over a year at that point. Just a lot of mistakes were made in that camp, and it was a very bad camp. I had a lot of things going on in my outside life that was pulling me away from the gym at the time, and looking back, I probably shouldn't have ever taken that fight, but I was just so determined to be a pro that...
Shot yourself.
Yeah, I shot myself in the foot, really. And, all credit to that guy, too. He was definitely good, but even, like, the weight cut for that fight went really bad, and I ended up like missing weight, and then I had to go back up to the hotel room and do the bath for like a full hour and just drain myself even more, and then go back in and re-weigh in, and finally that guy's already been rehydrating for 2 hours, which is a huge head start. And there was a lot of drama between me and my significant other that weekend, and my headspace definitely wasn't where it needed to be as a professional athlete. And when I went in there, I felt good. I still felt good. I was still in good shape. I knocked his mouthpiece out pretty early, and I thought I had him. I was going to jump on him, and then he just wanted takedown. And he just kept trying to wrestle me, which I understand because I rocked him pretty early. And at a certain point, he finally got me down, held me down, got side control. He really didn't punch very hard. And I tried to like belly down and get into like a north-south like front headlock position with him. And then as soon as I got there, I shot this arm underneath him, and I tried to sit out to the side because I wanted to put him on his back. And as soon as I shot that arm through, he was waiting for it, and he shot his arm underneath, and I walked right into a Darce choke. And I tried holding on to it for a minute, trying to fight my way out of it, and then everything just was enclosing, and I'm like, I'm gonna pass out. So I tapped, and it was really emotional, because it's hard, trying to take accountability versus also me knowing in the back of my head, like, no, I wasn't training like I should have for that fight. And so I'm trying to not push the blame off on others, but I also know that had things been different in my personal life and I was able to train for that fight the way I could have, I should have smashed that guy. I beat guys as an amateur that were better than him. And again, taking nothing away from him, he went on to fight in Bellator a few times. Like, he was a very good fighter, but he wasn't better than me. He got the better of me that night, and that just kind of like did something to me. I realized I was stuck in this position in my personal life. I had just lost my professional debut, and it was either, am I going to continue to train what little bit I can and try to take another fight and then have the same result happen, or do I need to just maybe focus on my personal life for right now and get it to where it needs to be able to train like I want? And unfortunately, that time never really came, man. It was always something else. Things just weren't good enough, or I ended up moving to the east side, so it was a 40-mile hike here, and I started coming back around COVID, and it was only once or twice a week because of how far the drive was. I was still working. My ex was in school at the time with 2 kids. And
so you came back for your first competition, was a jiu-jitsu one, right? And you took
yes.
the gold medal in both heavyweight and something else, I thought it said?
Yes, it was just heavyweight because it was during COVID, so a lot of the grappling tournaments were like pretty low key. I think there was only 4 or 5 guys in my division, and they kind of just combined us all. It was just gi and no gi, I did 2 tournaments, 2 divisions at the same tournament, and I took gold at both. So, I mean, I was pretty happy with it. That was my first time competing in 4 years at that point. So,
how did it feel to be back and then do as well as you did in it?
It felt good. You know, it felt good, especially because after what had happened in my pro fight and me not wearing the gi for so long, it really humbled me to be like, hey, yeah, your striking's really good, but like we need to get that grappling up to a similar level, or else, you know, that's all guys are going to do is just try to take you down and lay on you, and I didn't want that to happen. And plus, like I said, my first love was jiu-jitsu. I hadn't needed to use it in so many fights that I had gotten to like fallen away from it a little bit and was focused a little bit more on like wrestling and top game and my striking and different things like that. And so I put the gi back on and I trained hard, and on what days that I could. I had a friend that lived over in East Point, and he bought some mats. He was a blue belt at a gym out there, and he bought some mats and put them in his garage. So after the kids were asleep, I'd go sneak over to his house for an hour or two, and we'd just kick each other's ass in the garage for as long as we could, you know, just trying to get some kind of training in. And
what was that like? Because during that time period, you ended up getting, like, I'm assuming was the biggest that you had gotten in your lifetime.
Yeah, I was very heavy because again, you know, it takes 2 to make a marriage successful, and it also takes 2 to make a marriage fail.
It takes 1 just to make 1 fail.
I mean, it does, but it really does. But I mean, there were definitely things in that situation that I could have done differently or better, and maybe the result would have been a little bit different. But I was a very depressed person. I was feeling sorry for myself. I knew that I had what it takes to be who I am right now, and I wasn't able to be that person at that point. And anytime that I would try to, you know, there's only so many hours in a day, and I'm trying to focus on my kids, I'm trying to focus on school and a career, I'm trying to focus on my significant other and make sure that that person has what they need. And then I would try to focus on myself for a little bit, and there wasn't as much time, so if I tried to do that, it was, you know, I'm being very selfish, or I'm very self-centered, or I only care about myself. So then I would start feeling guilty, and I'm like, that's not, because I don't want to be a bad parent, I don't want to be a bad husband or anything like that. So I would then put my stuff kind of on the back burner. And yeah, man, I was really depressed. I was feeling sorry for myself. I really didn't know how to change things. I was eating a lot of food. I was working on the road at my job at the time, so I was in a work van all day, so it was hard to bring food with you. It was very easy to go out to eat and stop at restaurants. And then when you're working a 10, 12-hour day, you got to come home and take care of the kids. It's hard to find time to want to continue to work out or do something. You know, I'm sitting on the couch hanging out with my kids. I put them to sleep, and then maybe I'm playing video games or laying down for a minute. But yeah, I got up. The heaviest that I was about 290 pounds. So
what flipped the switch for you then?
When I first started coming back, so like I had wanted to kind of come back and wasn't able to, and then at a certain point, like for I don't know what reason, my ex was like, hey, you should probably, like, we should go back to the gym. And I was like, whoa, you're suggesting this? Okay, that's fine. But I was like ashamed. I was literally ashamed of what I had become and embarrassed, and I didn't want to come back because I was so,
You didn't want people to see you in that state?
yeah, and it was because it was a sorry state, man. And so I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. So I started staying up late. I got a membership at Anytime Fitness, and after the kids and everybody went to sleep, I would, you know, even though I had to be up at 8 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning the next day for work, I'd go up to the gym from midnight to 1 a.m. and get a workout in and just do what I needed to do. I tried cleaning up my diet a little bit, and I slowly whittled my way back down to like 265. And then from there, I slowly whittled my way back down to about 250. And then that's when mine and my ex's relationship really fell apart. and I went into just like a straight depression, but not to the point where I was eating. I was the total opposite. I had no appetite, zero, and I just was literally not eating. I lost like 30 pounds in like 2 months because I was just like not eating anything. I wasn't drinking anything. And then all of a sudden I would like binge eat, or I would binge drink, and I would make myself throw up because I wasn't used to eating that much. And that whole situation that I was in was just like, you know, you talk about like men's mental health, we're just supposed to be strong. I was not at that time, and it was very hard for me to try to reach out to different people. I called James, I don't know how many times, like crying to him on the phone, because I just felt so stuck and so trapped in a situation where I felt like I was being manipulated and mentally abused and traumatized, but I felt like I couldn't leave that situation because of my kids, or because of this, or because of that. And finally I had to like, it really took me like going off of the deep end and like seeing myself being all shriveled up and losing all that weight, and just how sad I looked. And I remember it was Father's Day, and like I took a picture with my dad, and I remember looking at that picture and I was just like, who even is this guy, man? And shortly after that is when I decided that, you know, it was going to be healthier for me and for my kids to ultimately separate with their mom. And I moved back. My mom lives in Belleville, so I moved back, and I had nothing to do. I had my kids every weekend. I had nothing to do during the week besides work. At the time I was working from home, so I had no excuse not to come back here every chance that I got. And plus I needed it at the time, man. This place is therapy. And where my head was at that point, you know, I was just strong enough to get myself out of that situation, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't still haunting me and bothering me. And there was a lot of scars and damage, and coming up here and surrounding myself with all my friends and my training partners, and you know, just being able to train and really focus on that, like, it helped. And then I met Shane Rickman. He was doing the 5 a.m. strength and conditioning classes, and he invited me to come up and start doing that with him. And so this is like this is like October of 22, September of 22. And I start coming back up and lifting with him 5 a.m. Go back home, start work at 8, get off at 4, come right back up here at 5 p.m. and then train. And that's all I was doing during the week. Then I get my kids on the weekends, I'd spend time with them, dedicate my time with them. And then during the week, boom, I was back to doing the same thing. And within like 4 weeks, man, I went from, I wasn't fat anymore, but I was pretty smooth. Like I didn't have like, I was just big.
Yeah.
You know?
Husky.
Yes, and then all of a sudden, like within 4 weeks, bang, like I had abs, like my arms were popping again, and everybody was like, holy shit, man, what did you do? And I was like, I just started lifting weights again, and like really got back into it.
Put them down.
Literally. And at the time I did change my diet, A, because I didn't have a ton of money, B, because I was trying to eat healthier. All I was eating was like, I was like frying an egg, putting it on 2 pieces of wheat toast with a piece of cheese, and eating like 2 or 3 of those a day with like some peanut butter and jelly and some vitamin D milk. And people are like, what supplements are you taking? And I'm like, I'm not. Yeah.
Poverty.
Right, like I'm not at all. So yeah, it was you know, I got back in shape really quick, and it was like riding a bike. And the biggest thing I wanted to work on was my jiu-jitsu. So I made sure I focused primarily on my grappling. I got my purple belt shortly thereafter. And then I had my first fight back after 7 years in February of 23.
How'd that feel?
It was pretty intense, man. There was a lot because I had been gone for such a long time, and I hadn't competed in so long. A lot of the people here, I was just a legend or a rumor, you know, or somebody that used to be here, a story that was told. And I wasn't like an actual physical entity that still existed here. So all of these people have heard all of these stories about me just like, you know, walking through, because like I said, I was 12-2 as an amateur. All 12 of them were finishes. I do not let fights go to decision.
So you have not. Your only decision was you lost. Why?
Yes,
Your second amateur loss, right?
Yes, to Josh Bruckner, which was a very, very close fight, and I had to cut down to 170 pounds for that, which I'll never ever do again. But yeah, that was the only fight that I've ever had that actually went to a decision. So yeah, I just, you know, I, and that's how I believe, and that's the energy and the atmosphere, and what I'm trying to bring to the table as far as like setting an example for some of our younger fighters is, I feel like some of our guys that we have, they go in there and they're very complacent. They're very okay with like, I mean, it's important to take your time, but they take the whole fight and they're not executing what they need to do. They're not being aggressive enough. They're not attacking. They're more or less just surviving instead of being the aggressor and looking to kill, you know. And so I wanted to set that example. And so I had all this pressure because all these I had to show that I was still me, that Dean M16 was back, so to speak, you know. But at the same time, I was so mentally fucked up that I'm like, can I still do this? Do I still have what this takes? Because I remember that there was a conversation and it resonated in my head all the time. And I had a really good friend that I worked with, and I was talking to him, and he was asking me, or I was telling him like, yeah man, I'd really like to fight again someday. And he's like, man, you don't want to do that. He's like, you know that Brandon Vera and like Joe Rogan, like the game's changed, man. You've been out of it for too long. You probably go in there and you're gonna get yourself hurt and blah blah blah. And I like, not that he was being a hater or trying to, you know, whatever. He was a very, very good friend and he was very supportive. But he just didn't want me to go get killed. I mean, he'd never seen me fight. He didn't know how good I actually was or wasn't. And you know how some people like to talk themselves up more than what they really are. So he didn't know, but like that like resonated. And I just kept like remembering that. And I'm like, am I? Like, do I still have what it takes? Do I still have that same fight or flight response? You know, am I gonna go in there and lose? What if I do lose? And then what is that gonna do? What is that gonna do to me? With this year that I've had leading up to that, it was either A, all of the bullshit that I went through was either really gonna be worth something and I was gonna be able to turn over a new leaf, or B, it was just gonna add to the crushing weight of everything that had already gone wrong in my life. So it was a very, very big risk reward.
Do you think that would have been the nail in the coffin had it gone the other way?
Pretty much. I mean, it's fucked up, but I like joke to people and they're like, oh yeah, you're gonna smash this guy. I was like, yeah, I hope so. I hope I don't lose. And they're like, oh, you're not gonna lose. I was like, well, if I do, I'll see you guys at my funeral. So like, I have a very dark sense of humor, but like in a way I meant that because
I understand that.
Yeah,
I understand.
Like in a way I meant that because it was just like yeah, there was.
This is my purpose of life. Like if I lose this,
I lost my family, I lost my house, I lost my cars, I lost my dog, you know, and I was trying to start my life over.
Find something to hang on to.
Yes, and if that is how things would have kicked off, I don't know what kind of irrational decisions that I would have made at that time.
Thankfully, we don't need to worry about that.
Correct. I'm in a much, much better place now, obviously, but yeah, at the time I was still not in a very good place. And leading up to that fight, man, it was it was a lot. You know, I had to move back in at my mom's. You know, I was working. I was paying child support. I didn't have a ton of money, and like I had my computer, I had my clothes, I had my training gear, and like my bed at the time was this like tatami roll-out mattress that was like twin size. I was like sleeping on the floor in my mom's scrapbooking room, you know what I mean? Like I had like nothing. So I really, really needed it, man. And that night changed my life. There's a lot of reasons that night changed my life, but that, to this day, I will always remember that night as being really the cutoff of all of the old shit and the terrible trauma and shit that I had to deal with the 6-7 years prior to becoming myself again and really turning over that new leaf.
That rain started.
I do believe it is. Leading up to that is when I met my now girlfriend, Haley. I went to go get my haircut for that fight and just happened to go to a different side of town that I don't normally go to, and that's where I met her. She cut my hair, and that was like, we'd been talking, texting, I invited her to the fight. I didn't actually think she was going to show up. And I remember like walking around, because I had so many people there. I sold like $5,000 in tickets for the fight back. And like there was a ton of people there. I sold a bunch of tables. All my family was there. And my kid was there. And she showed up. And I was just like, no way. She really showed up. And not only did she show up, but she just walked right up to me, put her arms around me, and just integrated herself with everybody that I was standing with at the gym. And everybody was like, who is this? I was like, oh, this is my barber girlfriend, Haley. And they were like, oh my God, you guys must have been dating for a while. And I was like, actually about 10 minutes ago, because I had no idea. Like, she was just like all about it, man. And I remember I was sitting in the back and like I had to go like get ready. And like she was great. She gave me a kiss. It was the first time we ever kissed. And then she went to go sit up in the stands, and she just like kind of watched me walk around. I was with my son, and she watched all of these people come up to me and talk to me and give me hugs, and she's just seen all of these people come up and giving me their attention because they were there for me. And that to her spoke volumes, because I didn't want to sound like a douchebag when I'm trying to tell her like, oh, I'm this really cool guy, I swear. But everybody says that shit. But like, she was able to see it. She was able to see how many people were there to support me, how many people cared about me, how much I mattered to so many people, which I'm so grateful for. And I remember going in the back, and I was getting my hands wrapped, and I was like, okay, I have to get my hands wrapped now. It's it's time for me to lock in. I'll see you after. And I put like a winky face or something stupid and flirty. And I had just set my phone down, and it dinged, and I was so infatuated with her, I just had to know, what did she say back? So I looked, and she was like, your opponent's about to meet two things, you and the floor. And I don't know why, but dude, that just fired me up so bad. And like, I did. I locked in at that moment, and I was like, and just her immediate like love and support, like she filled this void that I had. And just knowing that there was not only all these people from the gym that love me and care about me and want to see me succeed, but like this girl who I had just met and clicked with so well, like she couldn't have been more perfect. All of a sudden still continuing to be even more perfect at the show, and like saying the things that I need to hear from someone, because like hearing coach be like, you're gonna kill this guy, versus like some hot girl that's there to support you that like could have any guy she wanted, but she's picking you and telling you like, yeah, you're gonna murder this dude. It just hits different. I don't know how to explain it, but it just does. It hits different.
Yeah. Well, you're expecting your coach to tell you all that stuff.
Yeah, of course.
You're not expecting, especially if you weren't even dating 10 minutes prior.
Right.
So it definitely meant even more because
Yeah, it was
unexpected.
I mean, we had been texting for like weeks prior to that, but that was like the first time, like I had taken her out on Valentine's Day, but like I was really like professional and very gentlemanly, and like I didn't even try to kiss her. I just bought her dinner, took her out on Valentine's Day. Like it was very gentlemanly. But it just like, I remember just being like so locked in. And on top of all of that, my son was there, and my son sat with me through the lowest of my lows at home when my personal life absolutely fell apart. Like my kid is my best friend, and I love my daughter too, obviously, but my son was just like, he was just my buddy, man. He went everywhere with me. We did everything together. We played games together. He was coming to the gym with me, and he already thought I was like his superhero, but like I wanted to show him that like how strong dad can be. And having him there and knowing that he was there was just like so empowering. And I did. I went out there. I was a little nervous. I was a little sketchy. And the guy that I was fighting wasn't the greatest, but you never know. It's a fist fight. Anything can happen. And I went out there and I was kind of slow. I was a little timid. I didn't really want to throw and get caught. And I remember like I hit him with like a jab and his legs like crumbled. I was like, holy shit.
I think I watched this fight actually before.
I like jabbed him.
Was it second pro fight or third pro fight?
Yeah, it was my second one. It was that first one back in February. I like jabbed him and his like legs crumbled. I was like,
yeah, so I was like, did he like tear his knee off?
Yeah.
Or like, no, it looked like you would hit him that hard.
I didn't think that I did. And then he like fell and then like he tried to like clinch with me and I threw a knee and another punch and he like fell up against the cage. And I was in like, I didn't think it was gonna go that easy. And I'm like, holy shit, okay. So then like
weird too. He was like,
yeah. It was like, you could tell like when I had hit him, he was like really rocked. Well, I like was still kind of being timid. I had the center. I was still holding, you know, I wasn't being over aggressive. Whereas like after I hit him the first time, had I just like flurried him after that, probably would have ended it right there. But I was taking my time. You know, I was trying to get the feel, knock the ring rust back off. And he threw a big overhand right. And I kind of like went to like shoulder roll and shrug it, and it hit me. And I just remember being like, that was it? Okay. So then I was like, I didn't even feel like I got hit. I don't know how to explain it. Like, but it literally, I felt myself get hit, but it did not feel like getting punched. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that wasn't shit.
It's over.
So then I threw a body kick. I threw another body kick. He tried to catch it, and I threw a hook off of it, and he just, I watched his eyes roll back, and he was just holding onto my leg and fell over. And then I jumped on him.
When you bounced him, I thought that was gonna be it right there because I was just waiting for you to just lay into him.
Yes. Yep. And then ground and pounded him for the finish, and then I just went bananas, man. I was so hype after that, and it was just such a overwhelming feeling and a high. And then I remember I told Ben and Shane and a couple other people, like, grab my son and bring him in the cage with me after. And in that moment, I had even forgot that I had told them to do that. So I'm like in like kill mode and I'm hype and I'm excited. And I turn around and I see my son and he's crying. And I just remember like that also bringing tears to my eyes because it was just like, it was just the coolest moment, man. Like it really was. And then I got to put him on my shoulders and you know, he was in the pictures, and then like we took them, and Shane's holding him, you know, big strong Shane, got a burly beard. He's over there crying because Nico's crying. My dad's so cool. My dad's so awesome. And Shane's over there crying, and then we get in the back, and my son, you know, Nico's sitting back there, he's screaming, "My dad's the best. My dad's," and everybody's just falling apart. It was really, really cool, man. It was really, really cool. And then after that, my mom took my son, went home. And then I seen Haley after, and then she was the same thing, man. It's like tears. I just couldn't stop this overwhelming emotion inside of me. And we get back out to my car, and she starts like making out with me. She's like, "You're so cool," and I'm like, "Did I get knocked out? And like I'm actually laying in a hospital somewhere, and I'm dreaming all of this? Like, there's no way this is actually happening." There's no way my life did not just get this good this fast. Like, there's no way I have to be dreaming. And then she, like, pinched me on the cheek. She's like, "You're not dreaming." And I'm like, "Oh!" And then, yeah, man, it was, and then that was, you know, the start of something beautiful. Obviously, we're still together now. She's an amazing future stepmother to my kids. And
I would say you guys are couple goals. For sure.
I always say to myself, like, man, you know, I don't deserve you. You're so good to me. Like, I don't deserve you. And she's like, "No, you do deserve me." I'm like, and just the reassurance that she gives too, man. Like having that at home. Like I know a lot of guys in here that like the other half of their relationship at home when they're like, "Why are you doing this?" Or like if they lose, they're like, "You need to stop," or "You shouldn't do this anymore. You're spending too much time." Like having that makes it really, really hard. When you have that support as a combat sports athlete at home of that person telling you like, no, you are the baddest, like you are the coolest, you are the best. Like it just empowers you, and I feel like that is just so important to have somebody that's in your corner like that 24/7, somebody that's your biggest supporter, your biggest cheerleader. And when you don't have that, it's hard.
McGregor said that the main reason for her success was because of Dee, her support.
She was with that man from when he was on welfare, just trying to make it as a fighter, to look at him now. He's millions of dollars in net worth, owns multiple businesses. Like he is
certified.
Like he is success embodied, you know. So
I guess if you didn't go through that time period, do you think, because your son was born at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that you guys would have a much different relationship because you were going through that time, you were at home basically a lot of the time, it seems like, and not here, so you weren't really having to sacrifice family to be here?
No, I got laid off during COVID, and my ex worked in the medical field, works still in the medical field, so she was still, you know, what do they call them, the frontline employees or whatever name they had for them back then. So I played Mr. Mom, and I really appreciated that. I got to be at home, you know, with my son, and then my daughter was born right before COVID happened. Like she was like 9 months old when COVID really hit. And so I really got to stay at home, and I spent a lot of time with them as babies and got to, you know, play with them and teach them things and show them things and have fun with them and take them places. And we used to go on walks all the time through the neighborhoods, to go to parks. And I mean, do I think my relationship would have been any different? I really don't think so, because my son was always, both of my kids really, were always very important to me. And even when I first did start coming back to the gym during COVID, I was bringing them with me. And it would have been no different, especially because the person that I was married to at the time, my children's mother, I met her here. She also used to train at Star. She was an amateur fighter. Okay. So we were under the same ideals of, you know, we wanted our kids to be kind of raised around this environment and atmosphere. And so no, I really don't think it would have been any different. I really don't think it would have been any different. I am very grateful for all the time that I did get to spend with them.
That's always a silver lining right there for you.
Yeah, exactly. Like I did. I was there for...
I saw his room. His room is so cool.
His room is awesome. It's even cooler now. He's got like a Dragon Ball Z carpet. There's Dragon Ball Z stuff everywhere. There's Sonic stuff everywhere. He's got LEDs under his bed.
A slide attached to his bunk bed.
Literally. He gets a slide down every month. He's got it made. Man. But he deserves it, because he, for the unfortunate amount of things that he's seen between me and his mother, the kid has just got a heart of gold, man. He's the most loving and kind and sweet and gentle, and he's always sticking up for the underdog. He doesn't let any of his friends get picked on. He always asking how he can help, or, you know, hey, I'll be right back, I'm gonna take out the garbage. Oh, Dad, let me help you. He just wants to be a part of everything. And all of my friends, like people here from the gym and stuff, they all love and adore him, not because he's my son, but because of just how cool of a kid he is in general. You know, he's so much fun, and he's just so full of energy. You cannot be in a bad mood around that child. He just radiates this energy and love and positivity and just gentleness that, I don't know, it's unmatched. I mean, obviously it's different because I'm his dad, but like I said, all these other people see and feel the same way about him. He's just he's gonna be somebody someday. I don't know what or who or how, but he will be somebody someday, somebody important, because that kid is just...
Must make you proud seeing your kid in the right direction.
Very.
I feel like that says a lot about you, though, too. Because, I mean, you're the one that raised him, so...
I tried. I mean, as much as, you know, me and their mother maybe didn't see eye to eye in our own relationship, we had very similar ideals with parenting, and she is an excellent mom. She's an excellent mother. So I know that even when me and her did separate, whatever I'm trying to show and teach and do, she's also reciprocating the same things with them. And they're being raised right no matter whose house they happen to be at that time. So as much as I would like to, take all the success and glory for it, or, whatever, the only thing that I can really claim is I'm responsible for his Dragon Ball Z addiction. But no, I mean, I did do my best to try to teach him morals and ethics. I was a little bit harder on him at a younger age, maybe when I shouldn't have been, when he was 2 or 3, but men are treated pretty rough these days, and you have to, I was just, it came from a place of love. I mean, I didn't beat him or anything, but I was pretty stern and hard on him and would scold him about quite a bit with certain behaviors, even when he was only 3 or 4, and would try to explain things to him. And I do believe that is why he is in part so well behaved in school. He doesn't get in trouble at all. His teachers, brag and rave about him all the time. So I do think that has a lot to do with it.
I'm a firm believer that our society would be in a much better place if just every parent, just one time maybe, just discipline them.
Just got
to teach them to let. We were, and look how we turned out. We turned out okay-ish. Traumatized by our society.
That's putting it lightly. But yeah, no, and I do agree with that. Like I said, I never really beat him. I was never verbally abusive or anything, but I was pretty stern with him at times, and only when it was necessary. If him and his little sister got into it and he went to push her or something, I'd snatch him up. Hey dude, that's your sister, she's yours to protect, especially if I'm not around, and just beat those concepts into his head. That way I could sleep a little easier, especially when they're almost to the age now where they're both be enrolled at the same school together. Hey, some dude's messing with your sister,
right?
Take care of it, So
kids watch a lot too, because that's how they learn. So I feel when it comes to you, the fact that your son grew up early watching you go through that and then seeing where you are now, I guarantee that's made such an impression on him at such a young age that's going to change his life dramatically. I promise you that.
I hope, and I want to just be able to continue that, because I want to be able to go out there, win a professional championship, and get to the point where I am in the UFC and I'm fighting on television and I'm making a living fighting and living my dream. That way he can really see that, not just with fighting, but no matter what it is that you want to do, as long as you work hard enough at it and you set your mind to it, you can be or do whatever you want. And no matter what life throws at you, if you just stay the course, overcome the adversity, and just keep pressing on, you'll eventually get there. There's a saying that the master has failed more times than the student has even tried, and it's true. Nobody's perfect. You're not going to go 100% on anything, but failure is inevitable. You just have to learn from it and keep going from it. And be it that it's failed in relationships, or you failed at work, or you failed at the gym, or whatever. Failures happen, but you have to be able to push past those, learn from it, and continue forward in order to improve. And instead of doing what I did for a long period of time and just dwell in a dark place, the minute you get out of that, you see instant improvement. It's instant improvement. The minute that you dedicate yourself to something that you truly love again, boom, everything changes. It really does.
On that note, with your fight coming up, what are your final thoughts going into the fight, and what's your plans afterwards?
Plans afterwards? I'm not really certain. I definitely want to get as many fights in this year as I can.
I can imagine you're itching after 3 cancellations in a row.
Yes, it's been a pain. But in a way, it's worked in my favor. I've been rigorously training, I've had a fight coming up for the past year. So my opponent just recently fought somebody from our gym, and I cornered that fighter against the guy that I'm going to fight. And I watched 25 minutes of that guy fighting from 2 feet away. So I've got a pretty good idea of what he's going to try to do. I've got a pretty good idea of how he's going to try to fight me, and it's not going to work. he may be going back and watching that fight from last February. And then I had one fight after that in April, which I just beat a dude by pressing the A button the whole time. Like, I threw nothing but leg kicks for the first 2 minutes, and he quit because he couldn't stand on his leg. Didn't check a single kick. It was the easiest fight I've ever had in my life. I barely broke sweat. He's not going to get very much from watching those two fights because that first fight back in February, I was extremely rusty and nowhere near as dialed in and sharp as I was even going into that April fight. In that April fight, I didn't have to showcase anything. I didn't have to pull any fancy tricks out because, again, it was like I was playing Mortal Kombat and I just spammed the A button and I won. It was the easiest fight I've ever had. So he's not getting a ton of information out of those fights as far as openings or holes or gaps or things that he can exploit, whereas I literally watched him fight like 6 weeks ago from 2 feet away. I know he's not going to be able to change that much. I've busted my ass being in this building 4 to 5 days a week for the entire past year. I went from a purple belt to a brown belt. My striking has significantly increased. My cardio, my strength, my conditioning, everything is on an entire another level. So if he's going back and watching those fights and that's what he's planning for, he's planning for a stranger. Because I'm nowhere, I am levels evolved past where I was the last time I fought. I'm way beyond it. So if that's what he's game planning for and that's what he's trying to do to get ready and he thinks that, that's the version of me that he's going to get, he's sorely mistaken. And I don't see it going very long. I'm going to crack him on the feet, be aggressive. He's going to either go out or he's going to get scared and not want to feel that power anymore and try to take me down, to which, if by some chance that succeeds, I'll submit him. If by, I'll stuff his takedown, put him on his back, and then just ground and pound him like I have so many other people before that just fold beneath me because they can't get out from under me and they can't defend themselves. They have no choice but to cover up, because if they move their hands to try to push on my hips and better their position, then I'm blasting them. And they can't get out from underneath me because my jiu-jitsu is so good when they're just covering up like this. They're stationary. So they either have one of two choices. A, move their hands down and get cracked, or B, lay there and cover up. And that's exactly what they do. You feel them just fold beneath you. You just keep punching and the ref pulls you off. That's exactly what's going to happen. So,
do you have a sense when you're in the cage of when you steal somebody's soul in there?
Absolutely. So there's been guys that I've fought that I'm like, and the way I like to describe it is everybody has a health bar, okay? Some people have a very small health bar, some people have a very big health bar, but everybody's got one. And once you get that health bar to zero, people will fold. If you can't submit them by like catching them with something, or you can't actually knock them out, like there was one guy I fought, Grant Cashman, I beat the shit out of this guy. I mean, beat the shit out of him, and I could not knock him out. I full on chin to chin head kicked this dude like 7 different times.
Like fucking, what's the guy that took the knee to the face?
Yeah, and he just
took it.
And just, he would like stand there kind of rocked for a second, but he would not. I had to put that guy away. There is a difference in certain fighters. There's some guys that will quit as soon as they're tested. Then there's other people where you have to put those guys away. Chris Cameron, my last amateur fight, same thing. I had to put him away. I had to whittle him down until finally about halfway in the 3rd round, I got his back, flattened him out, and just started pounding him. And I split his eyebrow open with one of my punches, and then he finally stopped, and he laid there. But yes, you get a sense of how hard somebody's trying to fight back, how you can feel it, you can see it in their movements, in their eyes. When somebody's still sharp and crisp and they're coming forward, they got some spark left in them. And all of a sudden when the guys, they start getting kind of timid, and you'll see their hands move a lot like this because they're getting ready to kind of like shield up, and they know that like pain is about to be inflicted, then it's a wrap. You always got to be careful because some dude might just panic and throw an overhand right and smack you, so you still got to be careful. But yeah, you feel when somebody's going to break beneath you.
What's that feel like from your perspective? It's like to break another human being, basically.
Powerful, man. It's really powerful. There's been some fights that I've done that, and like it is the best feeling in the world. And then I've had other fights where like I fought this one guy, I tried to head kick him, he shot underneath it, tried to take me down. I stuffed it, took him down, and he held onto a headlock, which you're not supposed to do. So I got into side control, and I hit him with a Von Flue choke, which is a pretty fancy choke, but like, and I submitted him. But I kind of got up after that, and I was just kind of like, I remember literally like, the ref pulled me off, and I stood up and literally went like this and like walked around the cage, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess I won. It was nowhere near as satisfying as just bludgeoning somebody. Same thing when I beat that guy with the leg kicks and he ended up like quitting. It was kind of funny, like it was comical, and it's cool that I have a TKO via leg kicks forever on my professional record. But yeah, it's not the same as like just blasting somebody and watching them just like fade away. Like it's just not the same. Like my first fight back in February, same thing. You feel like I break beneath you and you just don't let off the gas and they fold. Very powerful feeling, man. It is definitely a rush. It's a high. It's unlike any other. You know, I've scored touchdowns, I've made game-winning shots, and nothing compares. Nothing compares.
Well, I know one thing, the only thing for sure is that I would not want to be that man. Walking into a cage with, you're 6'2", 6'3"?
6'3".
6'3", 185 pounds of fucking pure steel.
Thank you, sir.
With 3 cancellations to piss you off even more.
Mm-hmm.
He's basically walking into the cage and getting locked inside with a pissed off rhino.
Yeah, I'm pretty mad, and it's the guy
And a healthy one too.
Yes. And the guy that I'm fighting, I fought a lot of his teammates. I tried to fight him back in the amateur days, and he didn't want nothing to do with me. And obviously he just beat one of my teammates, so I kind of want to get it back, not just for him, but for our gym. And yeah, there's a little bit of like a low-key rivalry there. This is the first time that I can actually say that I'm fighting somebody that I genuinely dislike them as a human being, so I add that element into it too.
So careful what Poirier said about McGregor before.
Yes.
He said the same thing. So.
It's the first time I'm fighting somebody I genuinely do not like. And when I was cornering my teammate against this person back in February, before the fight started, he looked right at me and winked, and it pissed me off so bad. After our teammate lost, you know, the coaches, the corners, you go over. I didn't shake his hand because I'm fucking like, but I went over and I shook his corner's hand, and when I shook his jiu-jitsu coach's hand, I pulled him in real tight, and I was like, hey, tell him to keep that thing warm for me. And then I walked out, and he just he thought it was funny. He like, because his coach, he's a cool dude. I have nothing against his coaches, but like himself, I'm not a big fan of. So, yeah.
It's gonna feel nice knocking him out.
It's gonna feel really good knocking him out. So, and like I said, I don't see it going very long. I really want to show people that I belong not only as a professional champion, but that I do belong in the upper echelon of the sport, that I can compete in the UFC. And how I do that is by going out there and absolutely walking through this guy and just showing the chasm of ability between this guy who's a good regional local fighter versus me who's on the national, international scale. At least that's where I feel like I am. And I want to showcase just how big of a skill gap there is between this guy and me. And I feel like that's exactly what I'm going to do.